a little bit about how the fund has been performing, some of the activities that have been lined up going forward as we focus on the leap into the next 10 years. To get us started though, I want to introduce one of the, if not the most punctual Ugandan, according to some people, which bodes very well for confidence, considering that his job is to pour through all the numbers and ensure that everything is running indeed as it should. And he is the man whose opinion legally is actually very important, and he's going to come and give us that right now. As we get started this morning, please welcome with me our Auditor General, Mr. John Mwanga, to get us started this morning.
Thank you, Ben. It is indeed a pleasure to be here with you. My report, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of the National Social Security Fund for the year ended 30th of June 2022 to the members of the fund. Introduction. In accordance with Section 23 of the National Audit Act 2008, I appointed MS PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, as they're known at times, certified public accountants, to audit the financial statements of the National Social Security Fund on my behalf, to enable me to report to Parliament in accordance with Article 163, subsection 4 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, 1995, as amended. Opinion. I have audited the financial statements of the National Social Security Fund, NSSF, which comprise the statements of net assets available for benefits at 30th June 2022 and the statements of changes in net assets available for benefits, statements of changes in fund reserves, and statements of cash flows for the year then ended, and notes to the financial statements, including a summary of significant accounting policies as set out on pages 2 to 103. In my opinion, the financial statements present true and fair view of the financial position of the fund at 30th June 2022 and of its financial performance and its cash flows for the year then ended, in accordance with international financial reporting standards and in the manner required by the Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority Act and the NSSF Act. Basis of opinion. I conducted my audit in accordance with the international standards in auditing, ISAIs. My responsibilities under those standards are further described in the auditor's responsibilities for the audit of the financial statements section of my report. I am independent of the fund in accordance with the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, 1995, as amended, the National Audit Act 2008, the International Ethics Standards Board Accountants, ICIBA Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, Parts A and B, and other independence requirements applicable to performing audits of financial statements in Uganda. I have fulfilled my other ethical responsibilities in accordance with IBISA Code and in accordance with other ethical requirements applicable to performing audits in Uganda. I believe that the audit evidence I have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for my opinion. Other information. The directors of NSSF are responsible for other information. The other information comprises the information included in the fund information sheet, the director's report, and the statements of directors' responsibilities, but does not include the financial statements and my audit report thereon. My opinion on the financial statements does not cover the other information, and I do not express any form of assurance conclusion thereon. In connection with my audit of the financial statements, my responsibility is to read the other information and in doing so consider whether the other information is materially inconsistent with the financial statements or my knowledge obtained in the audit or otherwise appears to be materially misstated if based on the work I have performed. I conclude that there is a material misstatement of this other information. I am required to report that fact. I have nothing to report in this regard. Other reporting responsibilities. In accordance with Section 19, subsection 1 of the National Audit Act 2008, I report to you based on my work described on the audit of financial statements that except for the matters raised in compliance with the legislation section below and whose effects has been considered in forming my opinion on financial statements, the activities, financial transactions, and information reflected in the financial statements that have come to my notice during the audit and are in all material respects in compliance with the authorities which govern them. Report on the audit of compliance with legislation. In accordance with Section 13 of the National Audit Act 2008, I have responsibility to report material findings on the compliance of the fund's management with specific matters in key legislations. I perform procedures primarily to identify findings, but not to gather evidence to express assurance. There are no material findings to report on. Signed, John F.S. Mwanga, Auditor General, 23rd September 2022. Thank you.
A very big thank you to the Auditor General, Mr. John Mwanga, with some very good English and big words, essentially saying the fund is okay. And that's very encouraging as we celebrate once again a decade of transparency and accountability, which is why we will always start with him. We are also celebrating a decade of innovation. And of course, we are in a very special way celebrating a decade of customer service, which has been led in a very special way by a person that I'm going to introduce next. He's been there a little more than 10 years in charge of running the fund. And in those 10 years, we have made some great strides. And as we celebrate this decade now, we are looking forward to an even bigger decade of a leap into the future. I want to encourage you, wherever you are, to follow us online and be a part of the conversation. Our hashtag is hashtag AMM2022. That is hashtag AMM2022. And if you have any questions you want to ask, we'll make sure those are answered. And any comments from any key things that come out from here today. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and honor to welcome, to give us a report on the performance and future plans for the National Social Security Fund, our Managing Director, Mr. Richard Byarugaba.
A decade of growth, a decade of transparency, a decade of accountability. Welcome to the NSSF financial presentation for the year 2021-2022. I'd like to welcome our audience online, and I'd like to welcome our audience in-house. Last year was a tough year. Last year was a year of opportunity. Last year was a year when we tried everything that should work, must work, in an environment where things are tough. Fortunately for us, the fund came out shining as usual. I'd like to share with you our story of last year. I would always like for us to be able to remember who we are, what the environment we operated in, which was quite tough. I'll then finish that off with a little bit on the performance, highlighting some of the things we've been able to do around our customers, around our staff, around our processes, and what the results show. I will come to the end of my presentation emphasizing the value we bring to our members, to the community, to all our stakeholders, and then I'll talk a little bit about the future, although that future will mostly be emphasized by the board chair, because I would like to talk about today, I would like to talk about what happened last year, and I would like to talk about when the Minister of Finance comes to present and announce the interest that we've paid, what are the issues that we've actually gone through to be able to provide you with those numbers. So bear with me as I take you on this journey of who we are. Of course, we run on 5 values. Our customer centricity is the first thing we like to do. We would like to believe that integrity is our DNA, which enables us to do all the things that we do. We are innovative. We try and bring all the new things so that we can continue to give our members value. We love to work in our teams, and you'll see that clearly in my presentation when we talk about the people. And of course, we cannot do this if we are not efficient in delivering good value, but also ensuring that the cost of business that we do things at enable us to pay a good return, because that's what our members require. Of course, our vision continues to be the provider of choice with regards to social security, and we have a purpose which we live towards, and that purpose is to make lives better through promoting savings as a way of life or as a lifestyle. So, these are our value propositions. They are 3. The first value proposition we offer to our members is that we must preserve their savings. Our benchmark is to ensure that every single year we look at 10-year inflation and we say we must provide them a return that is 2 percentage points at least more than inflation. The second value we bring, the value we bring to our members, is we must provide them with convenience when they are dealing with us. That convenience means that we can serve them anywhere, anytime, in any place in the world. And we do that with a lot of pleasure. The third value we bring is we must provide a value add. That value add is with our people, is with our processes, is with the community in which we operate, and with all our stakeholders. Everything we do must be value to them. In order to achieve this, we've got 4 strategic objectives. 4 strategic objectives. And we do this through our people. We want our people, our staff, to be 95% engaged in order to provide a good service to our people. Once our staff can provide that added value, we want them to innovate and be able to deliver the processes. Our key process is what we call benefits processing or claims, commonly known as claims, in 1 day. We want to make sure that if we do that, that 1 day process will make our customers happy to the tune of 95%, and therefore they will give us loads of money to manage on their behalf to prepare for their retirement, and that target is to get to the figure of 20 trillion by the year 2025. So, that slide is so important for you to be able to follow the rest of my presentation, because a lot of what I'm going to talk about is how have we provided value under the 3 areas, and how have we been able to reach our targets that we've set ourselves by the year 2025. So, before I dive into that, let's look at our business model. It's important that we continue to do the things we were meant to do in the NSSF Act. We receive contributions from our members, 5%. We receive contributions from our employers, 10%. And we put that in a big pot and we invest it. We currently invest in 3 asset classes: fixed income, equities, and real estate. Once we have invested, we get revenues. Those revenues are used for expenses to run the fund, and everything else is given to the member as interest, which is what we're going to declare today. For your information, members, this business model is largely going to stay the same, but as you'll notice, one of the things that have happened this year is we've got a new NSSF Amendment Act, which has allowed us to do a little bit more. And I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. So a lot of little bits, but there we are. Let's glance at the fund in one slide. Our membership is about 1.3 million members, divided equally between those who are active, 620, and those who are inactive, 695. Our financials show that our financial statements of assets under management is now 17.25 trillion. The last numbers that the Auditor General has just announced. Our member fund has grown to almost 17 trillion at 16.96. And we continue to pay out benefits. This year was a record year. We paid out 1.9 trillion shillings. It's a record. We did that on average under 12 days. And our member statement continues to be updated within 1 day, which is great. And we are doing this only in 17 branches. And we've got 23 what I call outreach centers. Really what these are administrative units around the country which enable us to serve our customers in person. And then finally, our staff complement as at the end of the financial year were 637. And their satisfaction, the index that shows their engagement, the index that shows how happy they are to work with the fund is around 92%. You'll notice that this fell slightly, and I will talk a little bit about some of the reasons behind that. But largely, if you talk about international comparisons, this is a very good number. An engagement of over 90% is great and fantastic, and that's why we are able to provide a fantastic service to our customers and definitely to our stakeholders. So let's talk a little bit about the environment, because that environment, as I said, in summary, was not easy. It started off, of course, with the rest of the world. We know that the pandemic was ending. There was excitement that because the pandemic was ending, we would then begin to spend and do the things that we've always done as human beings. But that led to inflation because we were all consuming more than we required, and that drove worldwide inflation. Unfortunately for us, Ukraine and Russia and whoever did whatever they did started a war, and there we are. We have a war which unfortunately had negative impacts on all economies of the world and all ourselves. I'm sure you all know this number, which I found really incredible. 80% of our wheat is imported from Ukraine. Did you know that before the war? I didn't. So they've got a big, big impact on us. But even worse, China continues to have a very hard stance with regard to COVID. And that means that most of the stuff that get manufactured in the world coming from China means that there has been a bottleneck in the supply chain. Those factors all put in one little basket means that global growth, which was anticipated at about 6.1%, ended up only growing at 3.2%. So we can see that even at that stage, we were beginning to struggle as a world. We were beginning to struggle as a region. We were beginning to struggle as a country. And we were beginning to struggle as a fund. The numbers and the graphs demonstrate this. As soon as inflation hit, all the countries in the West, including the US, including the European Union, If you're looking at the UK, all put up their interest rates. What does that mean? The yield curve on the 10-year maturity bond went up. And that means only one thing. It means that people who had been investing in Africa, people who had been investing in Uganda, people who had been investing in Kenya, people who had been investing in Tanzania, decided that now they would take their money from what they call the frontier markets back into the international markets, where their bonds are giving them a higher return at less risk. Because if you're putting your money in equities, it is risky. But if you take your money back to the US or to Europe, where the bonds are issued by the government and you trust the government, it's a less risky asset, but giving a higher return. And that's why we saw the stock markets in East Africa crash. As you can see from the graph, the hardest hit was Kenya, followed by Uganda, and a slight dent on the Tanzanian stock exchange. This meant, as you will see, our stock valuations going down. Uganda also did follow up. And you all know that the central bank tried for a long time to bring interest rates down in order to stimulate production, in order to stimulate lending, in order to stimulate the economy to go back into production. Unfortunately, inflation comes in, and guess what? They also respond by putting the CRB up to 8.5% from a low of 6.5% at the beginning of the year. What does that mean? It means that our currency weakens, and as you know, we had a depreciation of our currency of about 6 percentage points. What does this all mean? This is a summary slide that tells you that what happens outside in the global economy affects the regional market, affects us. And as you can see, a higher than expected inflation worldwide, negative spillover of the war, worsening anticipated crackdown in China, ECB rates, results in the cost of living going up everywhere, including us, high business cost, high production costs, results in the regional markets crashing, and unfortunately that affects us. So what did we see in the business? We noticed that our growth was slower on contributions. We noticed that our compliance rates became worse, were affected. Our real estate projects became more expensive, and our equity portfolio began to be affected. Nonetheless, as I started, the optimism of NSSF, the resilience we've been able to build in the system, means that we remained optimistic that the recovery will come and get us away. And as you can see, our performance was dented in some areas, but not in all. So having looked at what happened in the environment, how did we perform? Remember the slide I talked about, which guides you? So I'll now start on the people. What did we do with the people to be able to drive our business? The first thing we did on the people is we wanted our peoples to have a staff engagement of 95%. That's our target. We ended up, as I said, at 92%, but that was partly a drop from 94% the previous year. Now, that looks like a go down, but don't forget that one of the big things that we did were we were reorganizing the institution. One of the things that NSSF in Amendment Act did is to ensure that we have more opportunities to serve the informal market, more opportunities to serve the members who currently have a pension with us to be able to top up. Those opportunities need us to reorganize, and we therefore had to change the business. That business model, that restructuring, that retraining, that reskilling was a little bit of a challenge, as all reorganizations are, but at the end of the day, we believe that that will help us. Because as you can see, the benefits of reorganizing is that we want to increase our productivity. We want to increase the number of customers we are going to serve. We currently have about 2 million members of customers that we serve. We are looking at 20 million. We need more productivity out of our staff. We need to reskill our staff in things like financial advisory and insurance. That is a skill we will need going to the future. That requires the fund to be agile. That means that we need to train our staff and therefore reorganize. And the last thing we need to do with our staff as a benefit from the reorganization is to improve the processes. We noticed that some of the processes were being duplicated. That's why some of our processes were taking so long, as you will see. And therefore, some of those duplications have been removed, which means numbers, reducing the hierarchy, and lengthening the scope of performance of our staff. That is what we hope the reorg will do. What do we believe the reorg will do in the long run? We think that as a result of that change in our business, we will need to change and realign our businesses. Some of the things we also did for the long run was we wanted to advance to make sure that our staff have a wellness. We had a wellness drive, which we did for our members, and we had 85% performance in our staff. The other area that we helped our staff also become capable is in what we call cross-functional project teams. What are these teams? These are teams we created when we had common problems, but required different skills. I'll give you an example. For example, when we were faced with a new benefit of midterm access, we knew that we needed people who could change our processes. We needed people who could change our IT processes. We needed people who could change our way that we deal with our customers. So we needed a lot of people from different areas. And through this last year, we had over 100 of our staff getting involved in projects which helped us improve. The other thing we've also been doing is improving the learning, making it lean, making sure that our staff undertake online through our process we call Desire to Learn. It's an online platform which enables all our staff to do very well and continue to re-energize themselves and also re-educate themselves so that they can learn and become developed. The other thing that we need is we introduced flexible working. We introduced a framework which we call the 3-2-2, which is 3 days in the office, 3 days out of the office, and 2 days in the weekend. It helped our people bond with their family, but also allow them the flexibility to be able to work, and we gave them the tools to be able to work from home. The last one is reskilling as a result of the fact that digital is such an important skill for us, and 50% of our staff were involved in a digital skilling. That is what we did for our people to make sure that we delivered on our performance this year. Once our people were developed, we then turned to our processes. What could we do in order to achieve a one-day benefit? So as you can see, last year was a unique year. Our numbers went up drastically. From 28,000 benefits that we paid out, individuals, to 46,000 individuals that we paid out. As you can see, that affected our turnaround time. So from an average of about 7, 8, 9 days the previous years, our turnaround time went up slightly to about 12 days, 0.3. And what was the problem with that? A lot of that was to do with some of the longer term benefits. You can see that what I've done is that I have given you the average payout time or turnaround time of 12.3 days. But you'll also notice that the survivor's benefit took us an average of 60 days to pay out. That was largely affected by the new laws that came out in the Succession Act, which affected the way we have to process the benefit of survivors. The other things that we also had to do was the systems functionality. As you'll see later, we introduced a new system, and unfortunately some of these payouts actually did get affected in terms of their date. But the story really to be told about last year, the story about turnaround time, the story around turnaround time is around the midterm access. We were able to pay out, on average, midterm access through 9.4 days. That is a very good number, given that it was the shortest, given that it was new, given that much of it, 40% of it was done online, 60% was done in person. So, if you put those things together, you'll see that our turnaround time, having been affected by this new benefit, we still made really good progress in making sure that our members did continue to receive and achieve their benefit in record time in spite of the volumes. So, the other thing that we've done to advance the long-term aspiration of the processes is we onboarded Octopus. Octopus is our acronym for a pension administration system. It's a brand new machine. It basically helps us to be agile. It helps us to be cost effective. It enables us to do straight through processing for our benefits and all the rest of our processes. We are hopeful that with the introduction of Octopus, we will now be able to pay 1 day of our benefits in the long term as we continue to optimize the system. What are the things that Octopus is going to do? We believe it's going to be a real game changer. Today, we can do expatriate registration using their passport number and TIN registration for employers. Just like that, they don't need to come into our offices. It has improved our compliance. It can automatically calculate the penalties, which used to take us such a long time to do manually. It can help us with our benefits processing. Partial payments used to be a problem. If you didn't want to take away all your money, you would have to struggle for the system to calculate that. Now this is done automatically. We are able to make back office validations with telco companies. We are able to make seamless integrations with other systems, with other service providers. For example, doctors. For example, the Ministry of Internal Affairs. For example, the court system, NERA, all those people where we rely on their data to be able to process our benefits. We've been able to do that seamlessly through this. And the last thing is that this system enables member self-service. One of the things it does, it provides a 360 dashboard so that our members can look at, or we can look at the members' business in one area where all the data are put on dashboards. And self-service is going to be one of the ways that we will be able to validate all online payments without necessarily referring to all the other data that we have that is not available to the customer. So, two things we've talked about. We've talked about our people. We've talked about our processes. So let me talk about some of the things we did to improve the customer experience. Our target with the customer is to get to a 95 satisfaction. So where are we on that? We are at 82%. That is a good number, although it went down. Actually, if you think about it, look at the graph on the right of this screen. You'll notice that we've broken down that number of 82. What makes it up? It's made up of the customer experiencing our physical environment, how we communicate with our customers, the customer care efficiency investments. But look at the last item on there. That is the area where we perform so badly. It is benefits. Our members have told us they love our service, but they would like to have more benefits. They would like to have more products. How do you provide them to us? And guess what? Last year, or this performance year, we got the Amendment Act, which enables us to provide them with things like midterm access. So our members are happy. And you can see that they told us from 75% the previous year to 77% this year, which, although the index went down for other reasons, mostly the physical environment and also the communication, you can see that we have made we've made progress on the benefit side because of the new law that will enable us to give our members a little bit more. Let's interrogate a little bit what we are doing for the long term for our members. So one of the things we are doing is we've introduced a chip and pin plastic card. It is a 3-in-1 card which enables our members to transact with us, to transact with the bank, and also to have a loyalty program. The other thing we've done is automating the benefits through use of tools, as I said, with the telcos, with the NIRA, and all the other data sources where we can then be able to find out who our member is. But most importantly, of course, we successfully advocated for the amendment of the NSSF Act, which brings us the following benefits. It will allow us to provide services to the informal sector. It will provide us new products, MTA and the new ones. And then it will hopefully help us in providing voluntary top-ups for our members so that members can begin to save adequately for their retirement. So, talked about the customer. I talked before about the processes. I talked a little bit about the people. So let's see what the numbers tell us. This is the crux of the matter. How did we perform after having done all the things that we did? These are the results. This is the report card you take to your parents at the end of the term to tell them, Daddy, Mommy, this is how I performed. This is how we performed. Our target is obviously to grow the fund to 20 trillion. The first thing we use for growing the fund is contributions. Our contributions only grew by 9%. But take a look at this graph. What does this graph tell you? It actually tells you that even before COVID, which is 2020-21, even before COVID, 19-20, even before 18-19, our growth on contributions had begun to tamper down. And this is the graph that shows it to you. The number that is in the line is the growth rate. So in 2018, 2019, our numbers only grew by 5%. We recovered slightly in a COVID year to 8%, and this year we went up to 9%. So we stopped growing in double-digit numbers in 2018. What does this tell you? It tells you that we had squeezed the market. We had squeezed the market. And see why we had squeezed the market. Because last year, even when we grew, what did we see? We only saw that the growth was mostly in arrears. What are arrears? These are people who we audit and they pay their money in arrears. There was very little growth coming from new members, only 50 billion. There was very little growth coming in reactivated members. We had a negative growth in salary increments. Okay? So that means, what does this mean? It means that actually some companies cut their salaries or actually even stopped contributing altogether. That's what this number tells us. So our growth, even though it is slightly better than last year, it still shows you that there is a problem. And as I've said before, it shows you the amount of work we've been able to do to squeeze out the new opportunities, but it also means that perhaps the economy is not growing as quickly as we would want to do, especially on the employment side. And in fact, we know that the biggest area that's growing is in the informal side. That's why if you look at the voluntary membership, we grew by 5,000 new members on the voluntary side, and we grew by 1,000 on the employer side. Those are impressive numbers if you compare them to the mandatory side. So, informality is growing. The challenge is we've not been dealing with it. Now the new law allows us to deal with it, and therefore we have a solution, hopefully for the long time, to cover with our growth. So, contributions haven't been growing. What has been taking up our growth? All right? What has been taking up our growth is assets. In the assets is our investment income. All right? So, you'll notice that our asset size grew by 11%. A little bit higher than 9% on contributions. And that is because, for the very first time, we are growing faster with income than contributions. This is not a very busy slide. Let me explain it. It shows you the percentage of growth of the balance sheet covered by contributions and covered by the benefits that have been paid out. So, the previous year, we were paying out about 30%, 30%, 37%, 39%, 47% of our benefits. We are paying them out to our members as a percentage of contributions we've grown. Last year, we paid out 80% of our collections as benefits. Let me repeat that. Last year, we paid out 80% of the money we collected. So for the very first time, our growth of assets is being driven largely by income rather than the contributions, which then demonstrates to you this. Okay? So what we've done is we've shown you this growth of the balance sheet. We've then shown you the year-on-year growth. Again, as you can see, this number has been coming down. So from a double high of 26% in 2017-18 to a low of 14 in 2018-19. But look at what happens today, 2021, 2022. Our balance sheet has grown, but not as high as it used to. And that's largely because of the new introduction of the midterm access, which has eroded some of the liquidity, and you'll see that in the investment side. Okay, so this is a breakdown of our income that we get from our assets, which is the blue line. The yellow or green line, is the income after tax and interest to members. If you are observant, you'll probably notice what that means. But the red line is our tax expense. As you can see, that has been largely flat, but that's because it is a percentage of only a small part of our investments, which is our fixed income investments on the withholding tax that we have to pay to URA, which is a tax deductible and is also allowable as a final tax. So, this is a slide which we've not shown before because this year is a special year. This is the year when we paid the midterm access, but we had to prepare for the midterm access. So ordinarily, we invest in long-term investments. And we invest very little money in the short-term investments. So as you can see, in 2014-15, we only invested 69 billion shillings on a very huge balance sheet. Last year, we invested about 166 billion in short-term investments. This year, because we had to prepare for midterm access, we didn't know how many people would come to draw their money. We invested 1.7 trillion shillings in short-term investments because we wanted to create liquidity. Unfortunately for us, investing in short-term investments rather than long-term investments meant that we had to give up a little bit of return. And I will explain the little bit of return a little bit later on. And this is what the impact is on our income. So what was the opportunity cost of the trade-off between short-term and long-term? We could have had an income of 1.873 trillion shillings, but our income ended at 1.776, which is what we saw there. Okay? So we ended up at 1.776. As you can see, it's a drop from last year. Had we not invested only in the short term to cover our midterm access, that number would have been 1.873. Just for you to understand the impact of a beautiful product on our investment strategy. I'd like to end to explain this slide, which I've used before, which is our assets under management, which I told you ended at 17.25. The number I would like you to concentrate on is our expenses ratio. Our expenses ratio is meant to be the expenses divided through by the average assets under management in the year. As you can see, that number has been falling down, and it increased slightly last year as a percentage, but that was because of the restructuring costs that we had to put in, and also preparation for the new term of making sure that we are compliant with the new requirements of the new NSSF Act. But largely, you can see that we've kept our costs improving year on year as a percentage of our assets under management. The other thing, of course, we do with our investments is our strategic asset allocation. Our strategic asset allocation is how much money we put in which bucket, because we know that if we put money in one bucket, we might get more money, but in that bucket, it might be riskier. So, what I want to assure our members this year, that our strategic asset allocation remained largely the same. The only thing that changed is that the 78% of fixed income was more liquid. And as I said, that was more tactical in order to prepare for the midterm axis. We're coming to the end of the financial statement, but it wouldn't be nice not to talk a little bit about this increase. And I have been building towards it. What does this graph tell you? We have been growing by 1.3, 1.2 trillion, 1.9, 2.2 last year. This time our growth only reduced to 1.7. And that dip again can be around or is around the midterm axis. We had to pay out this amount, which we were not expecting. And unfortunately, we also had the slump in equity valuations, which I talked about earlier on. And those two have impacted the growth of the balance sheet or the assets under management. The good news is that our fund is still sustainable. Our fund is still liquid because our member fund has increased to 16.95, but our assets that we manage are at 17.25, which means that today, if all our members wanted their money to be paid out, the fund would be able to pay them by liquidating our assets. So, what have we done in order to promote our performance on the financial side? The first thing we've done is we've accelerated our real estate projects. We recently launched Solano, which is 98% completed. Our pension tower, our flagship project, is 80% completed, almost to be launched. Last week, we took the journalists out to see the Temangalo low-cost housing or affordable housing project. It is at 25%. We've had so much good reviews on the social media and our members telling us that this is exactly the product they want. And guess what? We've also continued to improve. We've continued to improve our ESG agenda by innovating. We have got this innovation we call High Innovator. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. But so far, we've been able to create over 13,000, almost 13,000 jobs, 7,000 entrepreneurs, and then we've also improved our business advisory. That is where we are able to provide financial literacy to SMEs, tax management, and tax accounting and budgeting. And then finally, we've worked on our tactical changes to our SSA so that we are able to improve the money that is available to pay out benefits. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our performance. So let me recap at this stage. The first thing we did is that we improved our staff. We made sure that our staff were in a position to improve the processes. We've told you the things we've done around processes. Those processes have brought delight to our customers. They've improved their way of dealing with us. They've improved the way we do that they do things with us. And because they are happy, because the employers are happy, we now know that our financials are reflecting those gains. So let me now drill down to our propositions, where we create value. How did we create value this year? So the first area around creating value is we need to be aware that whatever we do as a fund, there will always be trade-offs, strategic trade-offs. I told you the one around the financing. We had to have short-term assets in order to cover our midterm collections, but that payments. But that means that trade-off is made because of the strategy that we need so that our members are okay, and also society. The other thing we also need to be aware of is that when we take on lower returns compared to the previous year, it is because we've had to let me start the other way around. When we ask for a higher risk, we basically expect lower returns. And in our particular year, as I mentioned, if you are looking for liquidity, you have to sacrifice your return. That's a balancing act, which we have to do every single day in terms of our tactics. So, our creating of value, as I said, remember those three boxes or circles are around savings. We promised our members we'll provide them a return that is over and above inflation by at least 2 percentage points. We will always keep that. The second one is we'll provide our members with convenience so that they're able to get serviced anywhere, anytime, at their convenience and at their pleasure. The last thing is we will make sure that we add value in whatever we do. And you'll see some of the things we've been doing to add value to us, to the community, and to everybody who is involved as a stakeholder. So, let's start off with interest. I know this is the slide that the journalists have been waiting for. Unfortunately for them, they will not be able to see what interest we are declaring this year. But we can say without a doubt that the 10-year average inflation as at the end of last year was 3.79%. So journalists in the room, journalists online, everybody, our members, will definitely be able to beat 3.79 plus 2 percentage points. So our target is 5.79. So I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, that number will definitely be better than that. But what does it say? We will always provide our members, their accumulated savings will always consistently be rewarded above the 10-year inflation rate. Number two, the amount of value that we create through interest. Again, there's one line I'd like you to pay attention to. Interest that we pay to our members is as a result of the amount of expenses, which is the green line at the bottom, and the blue line at the top, which is the interest, the total income that we create. So if you remove our total income from our from our expenses, you'll get what we are going to pay. As you can see, that number, again, is probably sufficient to be able to beat the target that we are. In other words, our net income after our expenses is all transferred to our members as interest. So there is where we create the value. So the less expenses, the more income, the more the interest we pay to our members. And as you can see, our expenses have kept really, really in a straight and narrow path. We have provided convenience to our members. This graph is very, very, very nice. What does it show? It shows you the number of members who walk into our branches. As you can see, since 2019, from a high of about 38%, that number has been going down. Today, only 6% of our customers walk into our branches. That means 94% of our customers, of our members, get service online. Why is that such a good thing? It improves the experience. It reduces the cost of doing business. It means that we can put more money in creating value for them in channels rather than branches, which cost a lot of money. So again, a very good number, and that's how we give back members and the good member experience. Some of the other things we've done again in technology is we've been able to invest in technology for the midterm project, where we are able to use technology to accept member applications. We have been able to use technology to validate member details. We've been able to use technology to confirm member details provided from the identity of the member. We've also been able to compute the amount that is due to the member, all by technology, and pay out to that member using technology. That's the reason why you'll notice that when we paid out the MTA, right, that number is at almost 19% of the members who applied were paid in less than 3 days. 26% were paid between 4 and 5 days. 27% were paid between 6 and 7 days. And it's only 28% that were paid beyond 7 days. That in spite of the fact that the law said we can pay within 45 days. But we were able to pay within a period of 6.8 days. Now, I'm sure some of you are clever. You might have noticed the item that was in the slide that I started off with, which showed a figure of 9.4 days for midterm access. This average is for those who applied online. So those who applied online received a faster service than those who applied in the branches. And that's what technology does for you. Okay, so what are the other benefits we gave to our members? We unveiled this card, I'd already talked about it, which has 3 functionalities: NSF functionality, bank functionality, and loyalty programs. What value did we give to our employers? We introduced an e-clearance system. We granted almost 9,000 certificates to eligible entities through our portal. So they didn't have to come into our offices to get a certificate, because most companies require a certificate to bid for projects. We were also able to give online certification for authentication. So if you got a certificate as somebody who was going to examine whether somebody is compliant or not, they didn't have to write to us to confirm. They can verify it online. We were able to give out penalties automatically during the rollout of Octopus through technology, and also deferral of contributions. We were able to do that, especially during the time when we were under COVID. And all this we did through automation. How did we create value for society? A very short slide to tell you the things we did for CSR or CSI, corporate social investment. So we invested in education. We refurbished 6 schools around the country, affecting 32,000 pupils. We were able to support Bayer, Uganda, towards easing medicine delivery for AIDS patients. 10,000 people were supported in this initiative. We have been involved in financial literacy for all of Uganda. We've been able to touch at least 3 million people during that financial year. And finally, but I think one of the big initiatives is working with the Rotary Partnerships, where we've been able to support disadvantaged societies and communities through the Rotary Partnerships, and almost 200,000 people. I always save best for last by coming up with our High Innovator. High Innovator, I talked about it a little bit earlier on, but let me give you the numbers. This year alone, we've been able to sustain at least 20,000 jobs. We've been able to enroll 6,239 entrepreneurs for learning, and we've been able to fund businesses, catalytic funding, to make sure that they go through their pilot stage, at least 27 businesses, with a payment of $20,000, $30,000 per business. So we believe that this initiative has been able to impact at least 20 individuals directly and a lot more people indirectly. I had to find this graph to share with you. This graph shows you the money that was being contributed by the companies we were funding. In Q1 2021, they were making 4.6 million shillings in contributions in NSSF. As at the end of the quarter, that figure had risen to almost 90 million shillings per quarter. For me, this is where value is added. Because suddenly these companies did not exist. These companies were not hiring people, but these companies are now hiring people and they are making contributions of NSSF. So we can see our selfish intention, but we can also see that we've helped the country in creating jobs. And I really, really believe that business that were not contributing before are now contributing to the retirement fund. And we are so glad because we believe that our money that we put in these companies is what raised the portfolio. As I come to the end of my presentation, I'd like to talk a little bit about our future plans. Our future plans continue to be that we will commit to giving our members a better life. That's our purpose. Under coverage, we believe that one of the things we need to do is to have a mass registration of membership. We've told you about the informal market. How are we going to achieve that? We believe technology will be one of the things we use. We will continue to do a lot of financial literacy and financial education and advisory. And we will develop those channels to make sure that our members are able to mass register. With regard to compliance, we have introduced an enforcement unit. It never used to exist at the fund. We are wrapping up our partnerships with URA, URBS, and NERA to improve on our compliance. But more importantly, we are also working with a lot of partnerships like the unions, like the Ministry of Gender, Labor, and Social Development, and some of the employer organizations to be able to mass sensitize our members so that they can begin to contribute, including working with the diaspora community, especially the growing diaspora community in places like Dubai and Saudi Arabia, where labor is now going, and yet these individuals are not saving for NSSF. We think that by getting into these partnerships of sensitization with those bodies, we will be able to guarantee adequate member retirements going to the future. Lastly is on our customer and stakeholders. Product, product, product. I believe that product will be such an important part for us. Product innovation, partnering with circles, partnering with insurance, partnering with saving groups, and driving the high innovator agenda is part of our priorities going forward. Some of the things we've done, and we believe we are getting good results, we will continue to do. I would like to end on a little project that we've been working with. It's a project, a retirement for artisans. We call it the Black Swan Project. The problem is that a lot of the artisans have income that's earned, but it's not predictable. We also know that they struggle to save. They normally want to eat their money, as they say, and not invest. The challenge is that there is lack of motivation to sustain this good investment habit. And we also know that they don't have financial literacy to be able to make those decisions. So our project is around organizing them into groups, making sure that when they are spending money, they are passively saving. When we've deducted their savings and they are passively saving, we then invest their savings, and then we can then allow them, under certain conditions, to liquidate their savings as and when they are needed. We believe this would be a very good link to the artisan world so that we can create more employment, but also allow them to have a way of being able to save for their rainy day, as we saw during COVID. The Black Swan Project is a project which we are so excited about, and the results are really becoming very good. In conclusion, the environment has been volatile. I talked about that. The fund has remained resilient. The future looks bright. We believe that we'll have more coverage, we'll have more products, we'll have adequate savings for our members if they are prepared to come on this journey with us. I would like to end by introducing my colleagues on the slide. You can take some time, look at that. That's the team I work with. And thank you so much for listening.
A bigger thank you to our Managing Director, Mr. Richard Biarugaba, who has shared quite a lot of insight into where the fund is and where we're going. And I must say that we will have a lot of questions to ask him after we find out what that magic number for this year is. A reminder for you, in case you're just joining us, this is the 10th annual NSSF annual members meeting. And this year we're celebrating a decade of growth, a decade of transparency and accountability, a decade of innovation, and also, very, very importantly, a decade of customer-centric service. And we want you to be in touch with us and tell us, what has your experience been like with the fund? You can use the hashtag AMM2022 in case you want to get in touch. We'd like to hear from you. Any questions you might have from the MD's presentation, any insights you might have gleaned off of that presentation, please do share them on social media and we'll pick those up and be able to answer them. As a result of the amendment that happened, the NSSF now, you could say, has two bosses, if you want to put it that way. We like to think about it as having better oversight, being able to have more heads overlooking what we do. And it's a privilege and honor to be joined at the 10th annual AMM by two very special people who will be coming to speak to us very soon. I just want to make special note of their presence. The Honorable Minister of State for General Duties at the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, and also representing the Minister of Finance, Honorable Henry Musasizi, who is with us in the room, as well as, thank you very much, please give him a big hand clap, and as well as the Honorable Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, the Honorable Betty Amungi, who will be coming to speak to us as well later on. But for now, I would like to invite a person who is responsible for providing leadership for the NSSF at the highest level. He is capable because he has done this himself as a business entrepreneur, as a business strategist, as an advisor to a number of boards, but also as an executive coach for many, many years. He now lends his service not only to the church as a member of the Kampala Archdiocese, but also as a very loyal Rotarian. But we are also privileged to have him give oversight and leadership to the National Social Security Fund. Please welcome with me our chairman, Mr. Peter Chimboa, as he comes.
Great. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'm very delighted to be here and also to welcome the Minister for Gender, the Minister for Labour, Gender and Social Development, and the Minister for Finance, General Duties, Minister for State for General Duties, Honorable Henry Musasizi, and the Minister of State for Labour, retired Colonel Ngola, present here, the Auditor General, John Muwanga, very nice to have you here, and our regulator, Mr. Martin Nsubuga. I would also like to welcome my fellow board members who are present here. Once again, the Managing Director, the Deputy MD, Patrick, and the Corporation Secretary, Agnes, and all the members of the EXCO team, and the members of the media who are present here, all distinguished guests. You know, on a day like this, when we come here to give accountability and also make statements of transparency, it kind of reminds me now that East Africa has just come out of the elections. And I will tell you a small story. A guy passed on and reached heaven. And when he reached heaven, he found St. Peter around at the pearl gates. So St. Peter said, we have a new situation here now. You will need to decide whether you want to go to heaven or hell. The gentleman told him that, you see, there's no debate about that. I would like to go to heaven. St. Peter says, no, you have a choice. Let's go and check out how hell looks like. So St. Peter escorted this gentleman right into hell. And when they reached there, the gentleman found hell to be some different experience. There was music, there was nyamachoma, people were dancing, and it was so exciting. So the man looked on and said, is this how hell really looks like? No, this is not possible. Well, nobody was saying anything. But there was music, he could see some of his fellow riffraffs and vagabonds also there. Everybody was very happy, and so on. So St. Peter asked him, have you had a good look at hell now? He says, yes. Do you mind if I can take you to check out heaven? The man was reluctant. He says, but what else can be better than this? I mean, this is the real thing. Then St. Peter says, let's go to heaven. So they went to heaven, and of course everything was quiet. There was sonorous music. There was God, of course, and Jesus was seated there, and the Mother of God. There were angels sitting and floating in the air. Nice music. So St. Peter again turned to the guy and asked him, what do you see? Are you okay with heaven? The man says, give me time to think. Heaven looks good. Everything is cool and quiet and calm. But hell was kind of different. That was the real excitement now. St. Peter said, can you decide now? So the man finally said, let me go to hell. So St. Peter says, well, I won't escort you because you saw the way, so you can really go down there yourself. So when the man reached hell, it was now dark. There were mosquitoes, there were flies, and he could see over across there, Lucifer was holding a chain and beating up some other guys, and there were also some other devils who were knocking people's heads and so. Guy says, hey, this looks different. And as he was wondering about the new hell, there was somebody who tapped on his shoulders, another devil. And he told him, yes, this is hell. Yesterday we were campaigning. Now this is the real thing. Guys, we are not here to campaign. We are here to make a statement of accountability. I have had the opportunity and a wonderful time to work with members of the board who are, I think they probably should have had this on the screen for me to introduce the board members other than making them stand up. On the board, we have Mr. Dr. Silva Mugisha, the Director and also CEO of National Water and Sewage Corporation. We have Annette Nakawunde Mlindwa, but maybe you could stand up, so wave to us. We serve, when you say chairman of the board of NSSF, you are talking about the individuals I'm mentioning now. We work as one. Dr. Sam Riomoki is also director with us. Mr. Patrick Ochailap, who is the Deputy Secretary, Treasury Secretary, and we've got Dr. Oh, not Dr. Penny Nat Kamwesiga, but I'm sure you're on the way to becoming a doctor. Hassan Mudiba Rwaboi is a director with us, and Mr. Agri David Kibenge is the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Labor, and Annette Birungi, director, I think I saw you around. So those are the members of the board we serve together. What have we been able to do as members of the board? And our celebration today, we are here to celebrate phenomenal growth and resilience amidst a number of chaotic factors that have affected the world and also have affected the region. We have had shifting growth trajectories. We have had also and continue to have accelerating disruption and also, of course, societal tensions. The world is going through what they call VUCA. Now, not the traditional VUCA definition. No, the people are they are very vulnerable. And they are very uncertain and undecided about their choices. C, they are very concerned. And A, extremely anxious. That's the environment in which we are working as a board. So our job, essentially as a board, is to review the success and also the good things that have happened in the fund by asking questions. We are not a body that tells people what to do. We review and we refresh our knowledge as a board on the activities that the fund is doing, and then realign our strategic priorities. 4 things that we have been able to do well, good people. I'll be here for a very short time. Number 1 is to inspire trust. Trust of our members that NSSF is a next generation enterprise. We do not celebrate legacies of the past. We defend and protect legacies of the future. We are a futuristic organization. As you've heard the MD mentioning, that there is a whole host of solutions for social benefit that members look forward going ahead. Number two, we clarify business purpose. NSSF is one of the first organizations in this country to be considered to be purpose first by the United Nations. That means that we don't only look at interest rate, money. No, we also focus on purpose beyond profit or purpose beyond interest and bend backwards to accommodate humanity's challenges and issues. Number three, as irregular as we can, and the world has changed from what you call quarterly meetings of boards. For us, we prefer to have our eyes and nose in, but our fingers out. That means we have frequent and regular meetings to review what's going on. In 6 areas, what is the latest information that we have, performance, on your key performance indicators? Number two, what are the trends? And what are the implications of the trends? And the priority actions we need to take going forward. And looking at the risks and also the treatment of the risks. So we clarify business purpose, but we also, as much as possible, assess performance. Assess performance in real time. In NSSF, we have no performance appraisal, but we have got performance enhancement conversations. Number four, we have built a team. We as a board work together to provide stewardship and direction to members of the management team right across the management infrastructure. So we've maintained the board dynamics and the information infrastructure at the board level, and also managing and following up the substantive issues. I want to talk about the performance really of the fund along the 4 major dimensions, especially in terms of money. Assets under management have gone up from 15.5 to 17.3. And we have seen that members' contribution has gone up also by 9%. We are now collecting a little more than we were collecting before. And we are seeing also the membership growth that is occurring. But we're also seeing an organization that is transforming along the areas of, especially where our accountability and focus is in terms of revenue and in terms of interest. I know the minister is going to be announcing very shortly what the interest rate is, but we have made progress in that area. The recovery of Uganda and the recovery of the global economy is going to be slow, it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be costly. We are very much aware of that and preparing for that too. What is the roadmap going forward? I've mentioned that NSSF is a next generation enterprise. We are not here to campaign. We are here to provide reality check. Success in NSSF is not necessarily our goal. Sustainability and transformation is our goal. The characteristics of board members at NSSF, number one is transformation leadership, is what you call courageous vulnerability. It's cultural sensitivity around diversity, inclusion, and equity. The board is very much systems aware and aware of the impact of technology. The road ahead is going to be marked by, number one, transforming the NSSF into a technology company. Making sure that we leverage data. In all our processes, we embed data and analytics in order to grow the legacy projects, but also build new ones. Number two, under technology, we are making sure that we adopt new technologies, being conversant as a board to ask probing questions around the investment and the strategy around technology, and be able to ask questions. Nobody expects most of the board members today to be tech savvy. No, we intend to do that and anticipate the direction of technology growth. We gotta be leveraging technology to ensure that we meet the needs and interests and the preferences of our members. Number two is to consider talent as scarce capital. Consider talent as key. In NSSF, as you have heard from the MD, reskilling, multi-skilling, and also micro-skilling and upskilling is an everyday activity to have the very best that you can have. In the next generation enterprise. The third one is innovation. And we are innovating around making ourselves useful to Uganda's society. NSSF is going to play a bigger role in Uganda's socio-economic recovery. NSSF has to play a role in the parish development model. We have to reach down to provide solutions and support. As I mentioned to you, that we are leveraging data, the critical raw material for our decision making. So we participate in investment in infrastructure, participate in non-traditional asset classes, participate in ensuring that this country of very proud people, Ugandans are very proud, but there are a few contradictions around them, and NSSF would want to kind of unbundle these contradictions. In Uganda, we think we are so learned, but one time when you meet people who have retired and accessed all their NSSF benefits, and they're somewhere in the village, and someone falls sick, and the bill is $8,000, and they can't raise the $8,000 to take the patient out, and there are so many assets around, you know, a lot of assets, idle assets and cash poor. That kind of situation, our innovation teams have to address. Why are we like that? We also very proud and so educated, but we need to count how many family businesses do we have, which have transformed themselves over generations. Intergenerational wealth creation. It's not there in Uganda. We should be humble to accept that. Embrace intellectual humility and see that the number of contradictions in our society that need to be addressed. NSSF fund, NSSF will be required to provide innovation going forward. The first one was technology. The second is human capital. The third is innovation. Innovation around other government programs. Agriculture is our only rescue. How is NSSF going to get involved in agriculture? To provide smart agriculture and new solutions to enable in the wide coverage members to have income and liquidity and so on. It's a terrible thing to have 3 degrees with very scattered assets around and you can't raise funds. So NSSF is supposed to provide and roll out a slew of social security benefits. C and 4 is collaboration, but more importantly, convergence of benefits and consolidation and customization of solutions that NSSF can provide. And lastly is what I've already talked about. The future of NSSF is data, knowledge gleaned from data, and building capabilities that will provide real-time, accurate, and precise data around what we are doing by embracing systems thinking as we find the solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, before I invite the Minister for Finance to come forward and announce what everyone is waiting for, I would like to assure everyone that for us as a board, we can only guarantee one thing, that we shall keep NSSF cohesive, focused, and dynamic for the future. Success is not an entitlement. Success is not a birthright. I thank you very much. I would like now at this point to invite the Minister for Finance, General Duties, to come forward and face the nation.
Sir?
Thank you so much, Chairman, my colleagues from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Honorable Beta Mongi, and the Minister of State, Honorable Engora, the Auditor General, and your team, the Chief Executive Officer, Ubula, and your team, the Chairman of the NSSF Board, and your Board of Directors, specifically my DST, Mr. Patrick Ochaira, Managing Director, NSSF, Richard Byarugaba, and your deputy whom I have seen, Pat Ayota, and the entire team from NSSF, members of the fund who are in this audience, and those catching us online, the media fraternity, staff from the Ministry of Finance, Moses Wekabia and others who have joined us. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. It's my pleasure to join you for the 10th annual members meeting to mark a decade of transparency and accountability. I was glad to hear that the fund has once again got an unqualified opinion from the Auditor General for the 11th year running. This is good news. Those of us in the public sector understand that it is not a mean achievement. That is the true spirit and a letter of accountability. Thank you so much, NSSF management and the board, for sustaining this performance. Good governance is important for institutions in Uganda and also in the private sector to grow, and for public confidence, especially financial institutions like NSSF. In this regard, therefore, I want to commend the role that the regulator, Uganda Retirement Benefits Authority, has played since its establishment under the Act of 2011. I expected Mr. Owere to clap for this. This deliberate reform effort was undertaken by government to improve supervision of the entire retirement benefits sector, and I'm glad that the reform has been successful. Like the NSSF, governance of other schemes in the sector has also improved, leading to the growth in their assets. The total assets in the sector are now Uganda shillings 20 trillion. This is about 12.2% of GDP from 5% a decade ago. I now want to directly address the members of the fund. Number one, on resilience of the fund. We have seen turmoil in the business world on the global and domestic stages, and yet the fund has registered an 11% growth in assets from Uganda shillings 15.6 trillion to Uganda shillings 17.3 trillion. We have also seen a year-on-year growth in contributions from Uganda shillings 1.36 trillion to Uganda shillings 1.48 trillion, a growth of 9%. The fund is committed to implementation of the new NSSF Amendment Act and has already rolled out the mid-term access benefits. In this regard, the fund has paid out mid-term access benefits for the first year running, amounting to over 443 billion to over 21 1,700 qualifying members in the just concluded financial year. This is in the delivery of the same. The fund had to ensure liquidity by investing in short-term assets with lower yields, and this has negatively impacted on the return to the members. The fund continues to ensure that your money is protected against inflation. The principle of protection of members' savings against inflation is at the heart of fiduciary responsibility. I'm happy to note that despite the challenges in the operating environment, the fund has consistently surpassed its target on a return that is above the 10-year average rate of inflation. The performance as presented by the MD and the chairperson of the board is commendable. This brings me to my statutory duty. I'm about to announce the good news, and I invite the Honorable Minister for Gender, Labour and Social Development. The Minister of State can also join us. Honorable Okero, the MD is already here, and the chairperson of the board. We can have a representative of the workers. I can.
Owere will not. Will not sleep today if he doesn't.
Would like to join us, and also the DST. You are in the board, but at the same time.
So I'm a woman alone.
Can I go ahead? My statutory duty this morning is to declare the interest for the year, and in exercise of the powers conferred upon me by Section 35(2) of the NSSF Act, I have the pleasure to declare an interest to be paid to the members for financial year 2021-2022. That interest rate is, we now turn to the screen. Seen it. That interest rate is 9.65%. In accordance with the provisions of the NSSF Act, this new rate will be calculated and credited on the balance outstanding on each member's account as of 1st July 2021. I congratulate all the members of the fund for making the right decision to save with NSSF. I would like to congratulate the NSSF board, management, and staff once again for delivering on your promise to grow the value of the members' savings. I thank you so much for God and my country.
A big thank you to the Honorable Minister. Can I ask, in the interest of sure things, that we please stand 3 people on this side, 3 people on this side, so we can take a picture with the Honorable Ministers and the interest rate that has been declared. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, 9.65%. So we'll just try and do some quick pictures. If you're following us online, of course, you can now tweet hashtag AMM2022. This is our interest rate for the new financial year. I'm hoping that we can put some space in the middle so we can be able to see the number. So Richard, if you can just move a little bit with the Honorable Minister to the side so that our photographers can be able to capture our interest rate for the financial year 2021-2022. Thank you very much. I think that should be okay.
We can go.
We want to make special recognition, of course, of some very special people with us. The chairman of NOTU, Asha Wilson Owere. Thank you for being with us here as well. We've got the General Secretary of the Transport Union, Stephen Abima, who is with us as well. It's good to see you, sir. Thank you so much. The General Secretary of the Horticulture, Nasal Jennifer. Good to see you. Thank you so much for being with us. We've got Paul Katabarwa, who is the chairman of the Build Union, with us here as well as Nathan Tumuhimbise, chairman for the Horticulture Union. I saw Honorable Rwakajara here with us as well, if you can understand. Honorable Auditor General, Workers MP, and of course we've got the Honorable Minister of State for Labour, Employment and Industrial Relations, retired Colonel Charles Engola. Thank you so much for being with us. Okay, we've taken enough pictures. I will ask everyone to go except the only lady on the platform.
I give you the...
You were saying that you're the only lady, so we are thinking it's only important that we hear from the Honourable Minister, as has been mentioned. As a result of the Amendment Act, we now have 2 ministries that oversee the NSSF. I should also have pointed out that we have the ED of UBRA with us, Mr. Suga. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for being with us at the annual members meeting. And Mr. Moses Bekabye, who is technical advisor, of course, as well. Thank you so much for being with us. As you celebrate this interest rate, we will try and dig into what the numbers look like and why that's important in just a little bit, as we get some insight not only from the MD at NSSF but some other people as well. But in the meantime, I'll hand you over to the Honourable Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Honourable Betty Amungi. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. My colleague, the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, my colleague, the Minister of State for Labour, Employment and Industrial Relations, the Chair and the Board of NSSF, the MD and the management of NSSF, workers, UBRA, and all of you in your various capacities. I want to, first of all, despite the fact that probably members did not expect the interest declared, considering the circumstances under which we are, the global and local economic turbulence that exists, the political turbulence globally, I think we should applaud NSSF for returning the 9.6.5. I want to thank NSSF for the work so far. This is my first time to be here as the Minister for Gender, Labour and Social Development, as a fraternity of the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development that has been charged from January with the supervisory role of the fund. I want to state that so far we have got a formidable team, a team of Ugandans that work tirelessly, continue to work tirelessly to make the fund one of the best in the region. And I think for those who had the new president of Tanzania, Uhuru, he has been, the hustler. Is Ruto. The hustler has said that he wants to come and benchmark how NSSF Uganda is doing very well. So I think we need to congratulate the team that has been in the helm of this. For the members, the 10 NSSF annual forum, and for all of you, the MDS, everybody that looks at Social Security as an important bedrock to safeguarding the future of those who want to retire honorably. I want to thank you. I want to thank you because this is a forum that gives opportunity for you to give ideas on how we manage the fund. And for that, for you to be here, continue to be here, and give those ideas, it's important that members play a pivotal role in giving feedbacks, because in an organization, feedback is important. Even feedback to know why we have got the 9.65%, feedback on the management, feedback on the vision of where you want the fund to go, the strategy that you expect the management and the board to undertake in the next financial year. This is a forum for you, and we hope that those ideas will come today so that we are able to get what your mission and vision for this fund is, to make us move together, because it's not good for us as a government and NSSF to keep moving without getting your ideas on how you want the fund to go. And of course, NSSF is a social security fund. It's not like a bank where you deposit and withdraw at any time. And unfortunately, due to still the economic turbulence, we were forced as government to enact a law for midterm access. And that midterm access statistically has contributed to lowering of the interest rate that has been declared today. So I really want to appeal to members that this fund is meant for your retirement. It's a social security fund to support you at retirement. So as much as the law enacted permits you to withdraw your money mid-term, I am still pleading with you that try every other option, and it should be the last option for you to come for midterm access. And I hope that most of you have not picked your money, but really you should try all other options, and this should be the last resort. I know the fund is doing a lot to ensure that we increase investment in other areas. I have seen from the financing, from the investment, that fixed income brings more money to the fund. So there might be need to look at more how to review probably our real estate sector, because today I was listening to the UK market for real estate, where banks are now refusing to lend for mortgages. So in the turbulence area where real estate is becoming a little bit, we can see and listen to you, hear from you, and have the global market to see whether we can first finish our real estate project while we see how the real estate business and investment is going. But I'm glad that from the declaration and from the assessment, the fixed income was not affected. And I don't think also the bond was so much affected. It's majorly from the real estate side and the issue of midterm access and other aspects. So I want to thank you all for turning up for this. I want to assure you that as a ministry, the MD has indicated what we want to do to implement the new law. The new law is now saying even if you are alone, you can voluntarily save with NSSF. Even if you have only one employee, you can save with NSSF. Even if you are in any business, be it formal or informal, you can save with NSSF. So I am calling upon the public that we are inviting you, that this is one of the fund that you can make money out of. Please, since the new law now permits voluntary saving, I am requesting and appealing to all of you out there, please come and invest in NSSF so that your money is secured, your money can have all the interests that can be safe, and we build this country together. I want to thank you so much and congratulations.
A big thank you to the Honorable Minister as we celebrate our interest rate of 9.65%. Of course, we want to encourage you to get in touch with us and share your thoughts. If you have any questions, we'll be putting those questions to a panel in just a few minutes. We'll be setting that up starting now, and then we'll give you an opportunity to ask any questions. We also have a feedback form. If you go to the NSSF website and go to the AMM page, you'll be able to find a feedback form where you can be able to give us some insights into what you think or any questions that you might have, so we can be able to take note of those. As we get ready to answer many of your questions using the hashtag AMM2022, that is hashtag AMM2022, I'm going to give an opportunity to the Secretary General of NOTU, our Secretary General, Mr. Asha Wilson Owere, to come and help us deliver a vote of thanks to our honorable ministers and NSSF, who of course have delivered some good news for us today. Mr. Owere, you're welcome.
The honorable ministers, our honorable Minister of Labor, Honorable Betty Among, Honorable Minister of State, Honorable Musasizi, and our Honorable Minister of State for Labor and Industrial Relations, the board chairperson, the managing director, all members of parliament who are here, all the leaders, the chairpersons, the members of NSSF staff, and all other leaders. Today is a very, very important day that I want to ask all the workers in this house to clap for the team from NSSF. Mine is just to thank you, the government of Uganda, for giving us this environment to save and ensure that our money is safe and is saved, and actually we are now seeing the benefit of our money. But first of all, I want to thank His Excellency the President for allowing the workers to enjoy their money when they are still strong. I know that the Honorable Minister was saying people should not go and get the money, but some of them have invested that money, have created jobs, and they have actually even rejoined and given some benefits to NSSF. Our focus now is going to be on the following. We want to see NSSF investing our money where returns are coming, and we are seeing it. The Temangalo project is good, but we also want you to go lower and see the houses that will actually benefit that lower worker. I want to thank the NSSF, especially the staff. Can you clap for the staff of NSSF? This transformation of the fund is something which we must all appreciate. The board, thank you so much. Thank you very much. We want also to see NSSF investing our money where job creation is going to be. This week, actually, honorable ministers, I'm promoting coffee, Uganda coffee. And I want all of you to take coffee every morning. You know, we want to create jobs. There are many jobs hiding in the coffee. We also want to see NSSF improving and making sure that there are things that we can put in our money and create jobs. I've already discussed with His Excellency on the avenue where we can create jobs using NSSF. So I want to thank each and everybody for doing this great work. But my special thanks goes to NSSF staff. Ndugu Biarugaba, Mr. Biarugaba, yes, sir. I'm requesting that Bongere Koku Kasend. They have done a good job. I want to thank the ministers. I want to thank the ministers for the support you have given. This interest, we were expecting actual lower interest because of the problem, because we also squeezed you. I remember we really squeezed you to get our midterm access, but you have performed. I also want to thank our Director of Labor for the support you have given to the workers. Our members of Parliament, for workers, thank you so much. The board members who are representing workers, Afo Ematek, thank you so much. May God bless you. Thank you.
A big thank you to our Secretary General for NOTU. Chairman General, you see, well, I repent in dust, ashes, sackcloth, and weeping, and all of the above. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to our audience online, I'm going to take my seat right here in the middle because a lot of things have been shared today and we want to be able to digest them a little bit and get some insight into this. So I'll ask Managing Director Richard Biarugaba to join me on the platform. I'm also going to ask our Deputy Managing Director, Mr. Patrick Ayota, to also join me on the platform, alongside our Chief Legal Officer and Corporation Secretary, Madam Agnes Dweita Isharaza, as well as the Chief Commercial Officer for the NSSF, Mr. Geoffrey Waswa Sajabi, the man that I keep saying should be on radio, and you'll hear his voice and prove me right. He has one of the best voices I've ever had come out of a male human being. If you have any questions, we'll ask you to share them using the hashtag AMM2022. That is hashtag AMM2022. So any questions that you might have about what has been shared today, you'll be able to get answers to those as we get started. So good morning to my panel. Good to see you all, looking very good. The Chairman General has asked that they increase your salaries. I agree with him. And that salary increment should be exponential. And so we'll therefore start by putting that to Richard, I guess, to announce how big that salary increment is. But also in terms of where we are on a serious note, Richard, some great insights that you've already been able to share. And I know that you might want to give some perspective for us as we start. So I'll just give you a few moments to do that.
Okay, so the journalists in the room, this is for you. The people who are online, this is for you. Everybody has talked about how bad the economy was. Everybody has talked about how midterm affected the fund. So I am going to present to you how actually the fund was affected. So those online, I hope you are seeing the slides that I'm sharing. Those in the room, just look at the board. So, you've already seen this slide. This slide is of the amount of money ordinarily we as a fund have been investing at the short end of the curve. In other words, in short-term investments. As I mentioned during my main presentation, that we had to increase the amount of investments in short-term investments by almost 85% increment from 166 billion in the previous year to 1.7 trillion shillings. So that you already know. How much money did that cost, this strategy cost us? This is how much money it cost us. So we invested, as you can see, 1.5 trillion in fixed deposit and treasury bills. We would have earned 105 billion shillings if we had been investing in the long-term assets. But unfortunately, we had to invest in the short term to prepare for that. So what we earned was only 12.3. So the opportunity cost, or the money lost by not investing in the long term, is 92 billion shillings. You've all heard that during the year, between March and the end of the financial year, we paid out almost 400 billion shillings, 440 billion shillings in mid-term. If that money had not been paid out, it would have been invested in long-term in long-term assets. So we would have earned 4.5 billion shillings. So we didn't invest that money went out. So we lost 4.5. If you add those two numbers together, the money we actually lost as an opportunity, those who do economics know that we lost, or we were not able to earn, at least 97 billion shillings. So let's put that on the bigger scale. So our member fund, as at the end of this financial year, is at the beginning of the financial year is 14.177. That's where we pay the interest. We made revenue of 1.776 billion shillings, trillion shillings, 1.7 trillion shillings, which is a gross return of 12.5%. We had to pay tax to URA of 180, so that means 1.27% was paid to the URA. We had to spend money on looking after the fund in terms of administrative costs. We spent about 203 billion shillings. That is equivalent to 1.4%. So that is knocked off the 12.5. We had to make small provisions for the prior year of 0.6, negligible. Most importantly, we had to put some money in surplus. It is our tradition not to leave the surplus empty. So we had to put there a small amount of about 15 billion shillings. So that notwithstanding, you can see how much interest we declared. So we declared 9.65%. Now, there is something I noticed that is not there. If we had that money from NSSF, from midterm access, I don't know why I'm confusing that. If we had money from midterm access and we had not invested it, and we had invested it, in long-term benefits, would have earned an extra 0.69%. Please report that. We would have earned an extra 0.96%. If the market had not crashed, I know the word crashed is a bit of an exaggeration. If the market had not lost its value in Kenya, and we had not lost any money on the stock exchange in fair value valuations, that would have been another 1.5%. So if you put those two, 0.69% and 1.75%, today we would have declared 12.09%. And that would have been comparable to what we declared last year. So, for the analysts, midterm cost us almost 0.69%. The market cost us 1.75%. And therefore, we ended up declaring 9.65%. Numbers for you, those who want to do analysis. Thank you so much. Check your questions now.
Thank you very much, Richard. What I'm basically hearing you say is that essentially we earned 12.06%, but the devil stole our money. I think they can report that, right?
Yes.
If you look at all the things that have happened, basically, not a bad performance at the end of the year. Let me actually start with you on this fact, because you and I were having a chat last evening, and we were having a discussion about how bad the last year has been for the entire world. And I chanced upon an article from Nextdoor in Kenya, which I thought was actually quite interesting, because the NSSF in Kenya has been celebrating their highest interest declaration in more than 7 years, which has been 10%. So if you put it into perspective, I mean, they're celebrating being able to hit 10%. We've sort of gotten used to that. Going below 10% for us is like the world has ended, right?
So, of course, you can say that they can celebrate because obviously coming from a law, I think the last year they paid out almost less than 7%, even before that. So we've been used actually for the last 10 years, if you look at our numbers, the lowest we've paid, I think, was about 11.0% or 0.1% or whatever it was. So that was our lowest, and our highest was 15%. So we've been used to the double digits, and therefore 6.95 is our first time in over almost 15 years to be able to drop below a double digit. Of course, I have been able to explain that a lot of that was to do with the market, a lot of that was to do with the new benefit, but as I would like to always assure the public and our members that this is only temporarily. If you look at what happened with midterm, we will not have a big payout going forward. We are now better planned in terms of our liquidity. Secondly, the markets always rebound. In fact, I would like to say that if this snapshot of the balance sheet was taken in July, 1 month later, that number of 248 billion shillings would have been a positive number of, maybe 15, 16, 20 billion shillings, which would have been great because that is another 2 percentage points that would have been able to add on to the interest payment number.
Right. Thank you very much. We're going to go into the questions. Of course, as you can imagine, we have a lot of questions. We'll try and bundle as many of them as we can. And if you have any questions, do use the hashtag AMM2022, and we'll be able to get through most of them. The bulk of the questions are sort of clustered in some key areas, which we'll be focusing on. As you can imagine, the real estate is one that is at the heart of that and what's been going on. We're celebrating 10 years of progress, and I know that, Patrick, you're very passionate about innovation. There's a lot of questions about that and what we can do. And then, of course, in terms of growth, Mr. Sajabi, how do we make sure that we are able to get back into double digits as quickly as possible? There's a lot of questions for you about that. But I want to start with Agnes, because we still have quite a number of questions coming through regarding midterm access. I know we now have this amendment, it has happened, but people are still asking. So I'll start by asking you, Dixon here is asking, for those who don't qualify for the 20% of the benefits of their savings, does their interest rate get impacted by those who withdrew their part of their savings, and why should we suffer on their behalf? But also, while you take care of that, you can also answer the other question about, are we going to amend the law again to allow members who have not made the 120 contributions to be able to have access midterm?
Hello? Thank you. Good morning, our members, and congratulations for the interest rates. The answer to the first question is yes. Unfortunately, for the members who access the midterm benefit, you may not be partaking of this. At the time the benefit was being processed, we made this very clear in several forums, including on the forms that you filled in, and this is derived from our law. The law provides that the interest declared today applies to the balance on your account, provided no benefit has been withdrawn in the interim. So you recall our members who benefited from the midterm benefit that we advised that if you accessed your savings then, you would take the 2.5 statutory rate, which you enjoyed. But you got the benefit. So we believe going forward, having gotten the benefit at the time, you access and continue to enjoy the interest going forward. So that is the position. And our members, we made this clear to you at the time you access the benefit. And the second question?
About amendments for the 120 months.
120 days.
Thank you. So this is a policy issue. As you know, for us at the fund, we are implementers of the law. It's a policy issue. I'm aware that the discussions are happening at the ministry, and if and when the ministry progresses the request to Parliament and Parliament passes the amendment, as the fund, as implementers, we are ready. We will implement. So we are waiting for policymakers and principals to take a call on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me come to you, Mr. Sajavi, in terms of the real estate, if we can talk about that for a moment. As you can imagine, there have been a lot of questions about the projects that have been undertaken, and one of the key ones is about the cost of the housing that we have at the moment. Emmanuel and Rita are saying the cost at the moment seems to be beyond what an average saver might be able to afford, and so the two questions that I wanted you to deal with: one, is it possible that if I'm going to try and get a house from you at NSSF, since you already have my money, can you tag my annual interest payment and transfer it to yourself and you give me a house? And then Rita is saying almost the same thing. What plans are there, if there are any, to be able to allow me to use part of my savings in case I need to acquire property? How do we deal with that?
Thank you, Ben. It is? Okay, thank you. So first of all, talking about the cost of the houses, I think Richard did indicate earlier that last week the media were taken to Temangalo, specifically to unveil a project that brings on board some level of affordable housing. Members are completely right when they say that Lubowa may be out of reach for many of them, and the numbers, show that. But we think that the Temangalo houses should be able to cater for that segment. So Temangalo should bring on board some level of affordable housing. The part of whether members can use either the interest that they earn or part of their savings to get houses, the good news is that the law, as amended, gives the fund an opportunity to come up with additional benefits. In the past, for us to be able to come up with anything, we needed to cause an amendment of the law. The good news is that this time round, within the new law, the fund, in consultation with the board and the minister, can come up with new things. So some of the things that we are trying to work on might include provisions where a member might be able to assign part of the savings that they've got at the fund to the project of being able to get, one of the houses. I know that a lot of those are not completely out into the public now, but as and when we are ready with the products that we're trying to come up with, members could potentially be able to benefit from their money through being able to acquire some of the houses that are being built by the fund.
In the meantime, what we've been able to announce is our rent-to-own program. Basically, what it is a member would be able to find, say, 20% of the value of the property. So if you're looking at the price, suite price that we announced, one of our houses of 90 million shillings, if a member was able to find 18 million shillings, they pay that to us, and then they would be able to pay the difference between 90 and 18 for, say, a period of 10 years through rent, and then be able to own it after that period of 10 years or 15 years, whichever is applicable. And we believe that that is a way of removing the banks, but also removing the extra cost that is associated with processing of a mortgage, and also the extra layer that banks use for analyzing their risk, because when they analyze their risk, they are looking at the other factors. In the fund, we have one advantage. We look at your income, because a lot of people who are saving with us, we know their income, and therefore we can anticipate whether this individual will be able to afford renting a property to be able to own it in the future. And therefore, with that data, it becomes much easier for us to do that analysis and then offer that credit, and therefore reduce the cost at which we are providing the rent-to-own product. The
natural question there, Richard, is then simply, so as a landlord, are you going to evict me from my own house when I can't pay the rent for 2-3 months? Because that becomes a complication without a doubt. How does that get dealt with?
I think there are issues there, of course. If we were to be strict, would basically be removing you out of your own house. But at the end of the day, the house is not yours until you've paid for it. And I'm sure you know this. When you are paying something that you've not yet owned, you're basically building equity. So what the member would have done is that they would have built some equity within the property, and that equity would be given to them through either a resale of the property, or if we were forced to sell it to another person, that person would definitely have to pay back whatever equity has been done, so that they are then able to complete the payment of the property. But certainly the member is actually investing within their own property, right, and therefore building up that equity, and therefore it wouldn't be lost, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Ben, I would like to preempt a question that I'm sure is going to arise out of this discussion. We've been asked whether members can use their savings as collateral, and we are aware that our regulator did release regulations to this effect. So it's our desire that we are able to assist our members in this respect. As you're aware, of course, we have our own law, and there's a technical constraint in our law, which we are addressing in liaison with the policymakers and our regulator. So right now, there's a restriction against using members' savings as collateral. Hopefully, that is a provision that can be unlocked to support our members also access this benefit. No, I'm sure that question was coming.
It actually was from very many people, and it sounds like an exciting idea, this rent-on. Patrick, I'll come to you, because again, innovation is what you breathe, live, and I'm sure dream about on a daily basis. Great innovation. What other things do you see us being able to undertake in the near future that might add to concepts like the rent-to-own that will probably be of great benefit to the members?
Thank you. I think one thing that the fund and the chairman mentioned is that we're actually now becoming transformative. I mean, in terms of just innovations from operational perspective, today NSF is, I think, the few companies in Africa that's paperless. I mean, you actually come and you don't see a piece of paper on any desk. The level of efficiency that has brought, it means it doesn't matter if Richard has to sign off a payment at midnight, there's no excuse why he will not make that payment. So it has really made us very efficient. But now as we look to the future, the idea is to create our own future. I mean, Richard mentioned something that when you look at our contributions over the last years, it's flattening. It really tells you that if you project that another 15 years, you may not have the fund. So how then do we create that future? That's why a program like the High Innovator comes through. Can we fund startups? Because the greatest job growth comes from small businesses. If we can fund them now, and the target for us for the next 5 years is to fund 500. Let me just pose something to you. We fund 500. The failure rate for businesses in Uganda is around 90%. But 10 of those 500 businesses, which is 50 of them, become MTN, become KCB, become another NSSF. What just happened there is we created our own future. And we're doing this in partnership like with MasterCard Foundation. The chairman mentioned the idea of agriculture. If the amendments have been made that now farmers ought to be able to save. What we found out that if you intervene and farmers can make more money than they're making now. Then we become more relevant in the community. But we create our own future, as Richard said, selfishly. And I think it's a good selfish motivation for that purpose. Thank you.
That's very well. Mr. Sajabi, in terms of the process, so we've got these wonderful projects that are going on, Solana and Temangalo and all of these things. If a member wanted to be able to book a house or acquire property in any of these projects, what does that process look like? When do they start? Are there enough for everybody? Because I know for a fact that I think Mbuya is sold out already. I tried to book one the other day and I was told it wasn't available anymore. So what does that look like? What does that process look like at the moment?
We are selling like hotcakes.
Oh, obviously. So how does Mr. Sajabi create a bit more projects for us to be able to latch on to?
Thank you, Ben. So in terms of the process, first of all, we're trying to create a website that is fully dedicated to the sale of houses. There are just a few things left, and we think that in a matter of just a few weeks, that should be completely out. So members of the public, members of the fund can be able to log in, be able to even have a demo, a video demo. They can have a look through all the houses without physically going to any of the houses. But from that demo, if you've got concrete interest, we've also got a sales team that is available that you can also contact through the website, and they can be able to take you to the estates. You can do a tour at no cost to you, and you can also be able to pick which of the houses you want, and if it's still available, then we can organize, you know, the issues of the payments. Whether the houses are enough, Richard says we're selling like hotcakes. The fact is, it takes time to build a house. Lubowa has taken us, just for this first phase, maybe more than 4 or 5 years, okay? Temangalo, we've simply started, but being able to deliver the first phase might also take some 2 or 3 years. Chanja, we've been building for about 3 years now, okay? We've got other plots of land and we will continue to build. So because it takes a bit of time to build concrete, the houses that are available today cannot be enough if out of the blue, every member came and said, I want to buy one. So what is happening now is what you call first come, first serve. And today, the houses are not specifically for members only. Any member of the public, even if you're not a member of the fund, and you've got the means to buy, and you are the first to come, and you can meet the cost of the house, you'll take that house. Of course, if 2 people came at the same time, and one is a member of the fund, and the other is not, automatically, you'd want to go with your member. Because also partly, you know a lot more about your member. You know a lot about the savings that they've got with the fund. You can also gauge with some reasonable level of accuracy their ability to pay, because you understand their trends in terms of income.
There was actually a question about that since you're using our money to build these houses, shouldn't I, as a member, be entitled to a certain level of a discount that is a better deal than the average Richard or Agnes who has never put any money in the fund?
Yeah, but Ben, also the interest that we just read out. Part of our mandate is to ensure that when we invest your money, we give you a return on your money. So when we build a house and we sell it at a reasonable price, right, your first benefit as a member is the interest that we give you. In fact, if we discount that house because you're a member, we'll be doing a disservice to the majority of members that are not buying houses.
Right.
Because not every member is interested in a house. But at least we know that every member wants a return on their money. So even when you're a member of the fund, if the house is going for 90 million, like we said for Temangalo, the lowest, the right, house will still be 90 million, because we've got an obligation even to those members that are not interested in
Yeah.
buying a house.
So what you're basically saying is essentially, let's increase the price of all these houses as much as we can so we can get more interest. Yeah, that's what we are saying. So please, do increase the price on the houses. Speaking of prices of houses, Richard, I'll come to you and then we'll come back to Agnes in just a little bit. Is there a level below which you're not allowed to go? Because there's a lot of questions about people saying, look, your average saver will not have that much money. Your current projects obviously will be pricing out a lot of people. Is there any provision for you to actually be able to go down to that level where you're looking at what is the cheapest possible house that NSSF can build? I think the question is, and it's coming from a lot of people online, what they're essentially asking is there a provision for NSSF to build a certain form of glorified muzigo for people to be able to buy? What's getting in the way of doing that?
All right. It's not yet afternoon, so we've got to be a little bit kind to our viewers. The honest truth is that I have talked about affordability of the products that we put out because we are NSSF. There are things we can't do. There is a market segment we'll never be able to deal with. For example, we'll never be able to enter the muzigo market, right? Because the muzigo market, in its inherent nature, cuts corners. By its very nature, builds in land that is not expensive. By its very nature, is not responsible for the infrastructure. By its very nature, does not give all the services that you would expect in a house that is in a good environment. By its very nature, if you look at the properties that we own 3 large properties in Lubowa, almost a square mile, in Temangalo, near 3/4 of a square mile, in Nsimbe, more than a square mile. So you can look at, these are large tracts of land. These are lands that have not had any infrastructure on them. These are land that cost us a little fortune. Near 3/4 of a square mile, in Nsimbe, more than a square mile. So you can look at, these are large tracts of land. These are lands that have not had any infrastructure on them. These are land that cost us a little fortune. These are lands that we've held over a long period, and therefore their values have gone up inherently. And therefore, if we are to price in all those factors, so price of land, if we are to price the infrastructure that we build, if we are to price the electricity and the water services, if we are to price the landscaping, a lot of people don't realize how much money goes into landscaping, because these are virgin pieces of land and they've got to be made habitable. So if you really put all these costs together, they have to be passed on to someone, because the arrangement for us under residential properties is build and sell. We don't build and own. Otherwise, we would say, all right, let's own it and then just charge rent. But we don't do that. We actually build and sell off. And therefore, if we have to sell off, somebody's got to take that price. And that price, unfortunately, means that the properties have to be at a certain level, including even the quality, because we don't want to put our brand at a level where we do not want to be. So we will not play in that part of the market, unfortunately, because of all these inherent things.
I think the one thing that Richard just mentioned is critical, and this is to ask and come and build in the roads, brought in the water, brought in Gumeme, that price would drop. Now it is a range that's more affordable. Yes, but when you have a private entity bearing that entire cost, affordability becomes an issue. So maybe from a public policy perspective, there are things the government can help us do. Waive of taxation, make sure the roads are done, make sure the power is in place, because these are public utilities that really should be part of the development. And that house can actually come a bit lower.
There was actually a question about that regarding the Luvoa area and what you're going to do about the roads, and there's a bunch of questions around that, but I guess, like you're saying, it becomes a bit of a fine balance between what you're able to do and what the government then has to take on as their responsibility, right?
Yeah, in fact, I can give you the numbers. We spent $73 million on that project in Luvoa. Of that, 32% was infrastructure.
That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly.
Can we be honest that that is ridiculous?
Exactly. If government had given us roads, if government had done the electricity, if government had done the water, and we only simply had to build houses, we definitely would have charged those houses 30% less. But unfortunately, we've got to do it ourselves. That's one of the issues we raised actually with government and with the president specifically when we attended the launch. And we are working with the ministry to see what things they can throw in to enable us bring down those. For example, one of the things that is obvious is that when you build for a commercial property like pension towers, we do not pay VAT of whatever, 18, 20%, whatever it is, right? 18%. When we build residential, we've got to pay VAT of 18%, and that's passed on with the price. So if government were to allow people like ourselves who do mega projects and say, since you are helping, we will forego the VAT on residential, but make sure that that VAT that you forego is actually reflected in the price on which you pass on to the member, right, so that that price is less VAT, but the government then doesn't get that. Basically, it's like government saying, we'll use the 18% to actually do the infrastructure which you've done. Yeah. Which would be great. Win-win for both the members and also for the government.
Are there any indications that those discussions are being productive?
Well, we have. I think if you were at the meeting, at the launch, the president asked us for a memo, which we've sent to government. And we are working with the Ministry of Finance to come up with some of the ways of bringing the costs down.
Right. Speaking of memos, Agnes, let me come to you. There was the issue of UTL and NSSF. There's a bunch of people who I think are former UTL members, and they are sort of trying to wonder how that was concluded. Since the case was finished, if I now claim my savings, what do the percentages look like? Are they affected in any way? From what I'm seeing, that seems to be the general direction of the questions.
Thank you. But I'll just make a quick comment about the housing issue. It's a debate we have, as you can tell even.
It's not just you, it's the entire country is having that debate at the moment.
Yes. So I think listening to the discussion we've had, not all hope is lost. So we are looking at the perspective where it is the fund investing in real estate and what the objective of that is. Obviously, it's a good return. But we also talked about this new opportunity that has been created by the Act, the new products that we can come up with. I believe that we can come up with a product that enables the members probably build for themselves, which speaks to the Uber regulations. So there are two sides to the coin, and I believe that with ideas being brought on board, we should find a solution in the short, medium term. To the UTL question, yes, there was a ruling recently in which UTL lost the case. Ideally, the beneficiaries should be accessing their benefits that had been locked up by that case. However, there is an ongoing process. So there were parallel suits along the main suit, and an order had been obtained which needs to be vacated. I am aware that the members are progressing this matter, and as soon as that order is vacated, they will be able to access their savings if UTL does not appeal. So on our side as a fund, we are ready as long as those legal technicalities are resolved. Thank you.
Just talk about the value at risk.
The value that had been locked up was 14 point something, close to 15 trillion shillings.
Billion.
Wow.
Billion shillings.
Billion.
Sorry, billion shillings. Thank you.
Yeah. Ben, there's been a question which she dealt with before, but I think it is a little bit nuggly because somebody has just sent it to me. Let me read it as it is. What I hear, anybody who assessed midterm will not receive any interest on the remaining portion. Maybe I got it wrong. Yes, you got it absolutely wrong. You will get interest on the portion that you did not withdraw.
Right.
So if you had 100 million shillings and you withdrew 20 million shillings because that was 20%, you will get interest on the 80%.
On the 80%.
Yes.
That
but
was
you
left.
won't get on the 20%.
Right. Let's actually talk about interest payment now. And I'll start with you, Mr. Sajari, and some of the questions that are coming from that. The most important one, of course, as you can imagine, is when am I getting the message? How soon do we expect
Haven't you got it?
the accounts to be credited?
Has anybody in the room got it?
No,
message
I
yet?
haven't got mine yet.
Neither have I.
Yeah, you haven't got yours either?
I haven't got mine either. That's
that
surprising.
can't be a good thing. Mr. Sajari, when do we expect to see the accounts credited?
Yeah, that's the man.
We do expect that a significant percentage of the members will get a message today that indicates to them, first of all, the 9.65 that we've paid and what that would translate into actual amounts. So a significant number of members will get their messages today, but we also hope that the rest of the members should be able to get the same within the week. So the way we are working on this is that it's largely automated, but we begin with the active members, people that are actively saving, whose details we completely have. So within the day, many of you should be able to get your message.
Right, that's great. And as we begin to wrap up, I'll start with you actually. The issue of voluntary savings, that's a big one, of course. The people who are watching us right now and have maybe not been formally employed but want to be a part of the fund, how does that work for them and how do they access the funds? Also, am I able to get my money out quickly in less than 5 years once I give it to you? Since I've done it voluntarily, can I voluntarily also withdraw that money?
Okay,
That's
great.
a very good question.
So voluntary savings are our biggest opportunity for growth. Because like you saw in the numbers, the mandatory side of the business is not growing as fast as it should, largely because this growth is meant to come from the creation of new jobs. But we know that many individuals are self-employed. You can now be able to voluntarily save. We also know that even individuals that are currently saving with the fund can also opt to save over and above 5%. So other than you saving 5% and your employer is doing 10%, you can elect to save more than 5%. Now, how does it work? For those who are formally employed and you're already saving with the fund, there are two ways. One, you can instruct in writing your employer to deduct an additional percentage every month off your payroll, okay? And that money would come into the fund. Those who are self-employed and are not already saving with the fund would require to register with the fund. Again, registration is extremely convenient. You go online, you key in your national identification number, and our system is able to pull all your details from NIRA. And that way you are able to register without having to physically come. But we also recognize that there are individuals who still wish to come, who would want to speak to someone to guide them. Our offices across the country are fully open and we're able to serve you. Now, the money that you save voluntarily, would you also pick that money as and when you wish? We know that on the mandatory side, the benefits are defined by law. On the voluntary side, the law gives the board an opportunity to come up with ways through which members that save voluntarily will access their money. What I can say right now is that the fund, the board, and the ministry are in the process of coming up with the ways through which money that you voluntarily save can be accessed. The good news is that it can't be the same terms. There will be flexibility in terms of access. But that flexibility also will not be to a point where you put in money today and within that very week you come and pick it, because there are administrative costs. But what we can guarantee to the members and to the public that wish to voluntarily save is that we're coming up with smarter, flexible ways to encourage as many people to join the fund and save. And we're trying to ensure that whatever we come up with is able to address the needs of all. Will not be to a point where you put in money today and within that very week you come and pick it, because there are administrative costs. But what we can guarantee to the members and to the public that wish to voluntarily save is that we're coming up with smarter, flexible ways to encourage as many people to join the fund and save. And we're trying to ensure that whatever we come up with is able to address the needs of the members, the needs of the different segments.
Yeah. And also address a really poor saving culture as a country. It's something that we really must work on. And I appreciate what NSSF has been trying to do in trying to help this. But obviously, we still have quite a way to go to be able to improve our saving culture as a country. Patrick, I'll come to you. And then also, as you wrap up, touching up from whatever you wanted to add on, but also he talked about online and the ability of people to be able to simply get onto their phone. If they are eligible, for example, for midterm access, can I really be able to just go on my phone and just punch account numbers and get my money? Is it that easy and straightforward? Or are there any terms and conditions that apply to that?
Thank you. I will start with the last question because kind of Richard talked about it. He gave us a number that people who did not come to the branches got their midterm access in an average of 6.4 days. The lowest was, I think the number was about 90% of them got within 3 days. That's because they were doing it from their bedrooms. Maybe a laptop, maybe a phone. He just mentioned that the app now we have, you just put in your national ID number and we populate, we pull all the demographics somebody has. Using your own phone number, we confirm who you are. If you're eligible for the 20%, it will actually tell you you are. If not, it will be great because you're not yet 45 or say 40. So you don't even continue, you stop. It then pulls your bank account you've given us and confirms with the bank that it's you. Under that circumstances, why do you need to come to the fund? And that's basically why we've been able to do that much in terms of doing that. And by the way, it's not just now pulling money, it's registration. You can do it online using the same process. You are contributing your money, you can do it online. Withdrawing the money, you can do it online. So you don't really have to come into that area in terms of that. And we hope more and more people can do that because the convenience of that is increasingly amazing. The one thing that I just wanted to add to what he said, what we also know that if I go to Chikubo and I tell that shopkeeper that, you know, I want you to save with NSSF, his mind will not be there. He says, no, no, NSSF guys, I don't want you to. But if I can understand his needs, his financial solutions, maybe he needs an insurance cover for his products, for his medical, for his health, for his family, or to save for his education. What I do is when I go to him, I go with the whole financial solution. The reskilling that Richard talked about was taking our staff, changing them from whatever they were doing to financial advisors. And what you're going to find that as we go out in the voluntary space, we come with a buffet of products that on your own, today they're too expensive for you to get, or you'll not even be able to access it. But now because you're willing to save with an SSF, you then have access to a lot of these other things. So that's kind of where you saw the products that are coming through. And we understand that the different people will have market vendors will have different needs. Border guys will have different needs. And just understanding those needs and putting a buffet of offering for them.
Are you able to share any insights on any of these products that might have been solidified and are just waiting to go to market? Do you have the liberty to share what some of those that might be exciting for us to take note of yet?
One of the things we found out, interestingly enough, let's look at the border guys. Already, one of the greatest problems border guys have basically accident insurance. There are some offerings in the product in the market today, but rather expensive. We could actually half that price, that premium, and that border has got an accident coverage. If something happens to him, he can go to a hospital, inpatient, outpatient, or if he goes out this world, some beneficiary goes to his patient, in addition to the savings he makes. And those are the things we are working on that we think is very exciting for potential members.
That sounds extremely exciting.
I think Geoffrey can talk about one of the products that we are working that will be able to help, especially the informal sector, around the smart product, the short-term product, with the back end of the unit trust. If you could just explain that.
Okay, so earlier we thought that these were details, but
He's asked for it.
yes. So there are a few things that we're trying to work on, what we're calling the smart life. First of all, to make it flexible enough so people will be able to save in terms of bands of years. So when you join, you can choose to say, I need a product that enables me to save and accumulate savings for maybe 4 years, or 3 years, or 5 years, or 10 years, at the end of which you then are able to access money that you've saved for that purpose. But inbuilt in that also is a recognition that you may have a need that arises before the actual period for which you signed up. So I might have signed up for 10 years or 5 years, but 2 years down the road, I lost my job. I'm able to access whatever money I would have saved, even if I had not yet made the period of 5 years. Or for medical reasons, I'm unable to continue saving despite having signed up for 3 years or 5 years. I'd still be able to access whatever money I would have saved within that particular account. But we're also trying to cater for the very short-term nature. We know, and Patrick gave an example of a guy in Chikubo. I've got my shop, and I'm selling stuff every day, and I'm saving with the fund. But a few months down the road, my goods come into the country, and the tax body cannot let them out because I need to pay, some money, and I don't have this money. Other than going to a bank to borrow, I could be able to withdraw money that I've been saving with the fund. That's where we're talking about the unit trust that can enable you to be able to draw your money out as and when your need arises. But of course, it's going to be underpinned a lot by financial education. That even when it's available, we would not like it to be a product where you basically withdraw all the time. So there will be a lot of financial education, especially about the implications of people opting out early. Because every time you opt out earlier than you should have, waited, there is a bit of a loss that you make as a member. So even when there will be options for the short term, we're trying to invest a lot in financial education so people can take the options of taking their money out short term when they completely understand what implications such things have. Right. But there's a lot more that we're doing that once fully approved, will be able to go to the market.
Right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask the four of you to play a game. It's called Quick Fire, because I have so many questions and very little time. So I'm going to run through as many questions as I can, and whoever feels they are best placed to answer the question will pick up their mic and answer that question in as a short time as they can. Are you ready to play?
Yes.
Okay. Question number one. Rent to own, great idea. This is from Elijah Kisembo. What's the criteria for accessing rent to own?
You got to have money in your bank account.
Easy as that.
Yes.
Go to the NSSF
Obviously,
website,
we don't
get
want
detail.
we don't want you to apply,
yeah,
and you don't have the means to do so. The only way we can find out you have the means is you have money with us.
Right. So if you're a member, it makes it much, much easier for you.
Yeah.
Are there plans for building in other cities of Uganda where members live? Geoffrey, I think that would definitely be you, maybe?
Yes, there are plans. On the commercial side, we already have started. So we built Jinja City House, Mbarara City House. Today we are building in Mbale, and very soon we'll be building Gulu. So on the commercial side, we've started.
Right.
And I think discussions also will continue on the residential side.
Because we actually have 15 cities, so I think
yes,
the plan
that
will
has
be
to be a lot informed by the market.
Yeah,
so
right.
if you discover that there is a market in Gulu for a certain house, you can actually go there.
Right. Figures, Richard, you're very good with numbers. Percentage of people that have received midterm so far?
Percentage of midterm?
Yeah.
As a percentage of those who are eligible?
Right.
I would say slightly over 50%.
50%.
Yes.
Okay. So about 50%. I think this would be for you, Agnes. Non-compliant institutions. What do we do with those? Some people are saying that I work for your company, they're not giving NSSF contributions. How does that get handled for them?
Okay, I'll have a go at it and Geoffrey will supplement. So we have a whistleblower platform where our members can report such cases and Geoffrey's team will take it up and investigate and will ensure that the employer complies. But now, with the opening up of that has arisen out of the amendments, obviously it means almost everybody now is eligible. So we are going to see a lot of those complaints happening. So we'll be using a mix of approaches.
Right.
We are going to do a lot of sensitization. Richard talked about it in his presentation. Sensitization. We are going to be working a lot with partners. You had our minister talk about it. And obviously enforcement. So when all fails, we have the options to enforce through the courts of law. But
Right.
that must be the last resort.
Right, so the stick has to come out if it comes down to that.
Yeah.
Mr. Ayota, innovation, a bunch of people are saying, look, if I have wonderful ideas that might be useful, how do I go about getting those to you? People have very good ideas in terms of innovation and they want to maybe try and interest the fund in them. Is there an avenue for them to do that?
Actually, if you go to the website, nssfug.org, there is a link to the High Innovator Program and it walks you through how we get you from where you are. You come through the program and potentially then be eligible for funding.
Right.
That's the easiest way to do it.
Straightforward. A couple of yes or no questions. Can an existing member start a voluntary savings account with NSSF? I guess that's a yes.
Big yes.
Big yes. When I do start, can I consolidate my voluntary savings with my main account? Is it the main account or is it a different account?
You'll have two accounts.
So there will be two accounts?
Yes, because the terms are different.
Right.
Voluntary can be accessed much earlier. Mandatory has got a different, game plan altogether.
But it's the same membership number?
Same membership number, but you need two accounts.
Two accounts.
Yes.
Okay, so you will have the same number, but there will be two accounts. Loan scheme for savers at low interest rate that can stop us going to the banks. Instead of you lending money to the government, can you lend it to your members?
That's an old age discussion.
It's a big no for now.
It's a big no.
Big no for now. Okay. Go to the banks for now. I guess that's the same thing, especially in agriculture, because a lot of people are saying agricultural space, again, at the moment.
Actually, if you allow me, I'll just say something about that.
Yeah.
I've been very passionate about agriculture. We have a whole yield fund worth 20 million euros. I know euros are no longer that great, or pounds, but that's a lot of money still, which we have had available for businesses that are in the agro-processing, that are in agriculture, either at the low end of the value chain or at the top end of the value chain, basically trying to promote agriculture. What does it require? It requires anybody who has a business to come to the yield fund. The yield fund will put in capital as an equity investor. It is going to be an equity investment that is in the minority. In other words, you as the owner of the business retain the majority ownership in the company, but we, through the fund, come through as shareholders. That's what you've got to let us do. We come onto your board, we help in whatever you're doing, but effectively, it is another way of telling you, don't go to the banks, because that's very expensive money. Come and get private equity and run your business and promote it.
So I must ask.
But we've not had good uptake.
Hold on a moment, Richard. That sounds like something that's too good. Why is that money still in your accounts?
That's because people don't want the interference, if I were to be honest. Yes. Secondly, they don't want their staff to be known to the public, especially the URA, hint, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So they would rather continue running their businesses without taking that capital or going to the banks. because the banks don't ask those sort of questions.
But for anybody who's running a legit business that wants to stay above the board and do things properly, this is money that is available to them.
Yes.
It is available.
You go through a due diligence and the money is available. I mean, up to, I think the last I checked was like 500,000 euros you can actually access. I think
someone can take up to 500,000 euros as one business.
Yes. And actually, you even have a choice, take it as equity or debt. That's okay.
Oh, wow.
What we found out, and the other culture that we as Ugandans really need to get rid of is this. We do the startups, and most of the startups, most of the businesses, they want to own 100% of their business. Now, I'll just pose a question to you. Which is better, 100% of $1 billion shillings or 60% of $1 billion shillings?
Yeah.
But you can business grow to $1 billion shillings as long as it's you and you and you and loan. And the Kenyans beat us because Kenyans are willing to bring in shareholders. Here, there's so much resistance. I want to own it all for reasons Richard has said.
Yeah.
And it actually bedevils us because how do you break that culture?
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
A quick addition to that. So one of the other largest constraints is around the corporate governance of these entities. Because you want to go into business and partnership with well set up entities. So set up the structures, the policies, the processes, make yourself attractive, be open, transparent, accountable, like our theme is here.
Yes.
That is a constraint.
But the money is
Like
there.
NSSF does, yes.
Right. Like you do.
Be transparent.
Obviously, without a doubt. Speaking of transparency, from the moment that the Minister, Honorable Umusasizi, announced that 9.65%, as per right now, which is 12:11 p.m., we've got 260,648 members who have been credited. And if that is you, could you kindly tweet us and confirm that you have actually received that message? The hashtag is AMM2022. That is hashtag AMM2022. If you have already received your money, please let us know. I'll wrap up by simply going through some comments that are very interesting.